Hey team. So I'm in my little computer room here. I'm not wearing pants as you can see, but that's fine. Can't really see too much. Thought I'd do a late vlog today. I just got back from playing some board games with my parents, enjoying sort of my day off. So I don't really have a topic for today. I've got some notes here and I'll touch on those. So first up, my training for the week. So I'm in deload / taper now for the powerlifting comp this Sunday. Starting to think about mine and Westy's openers, second attempts, third attempts, comp plan, how we're going to do it. I've started packing my bag, all that kind of stuff. Body's feeling okay, back's always tight. So I'm just trying to relax, sleep, eat, weights just dropping. So I'm like 102, and that's just some better habits. Get a little bit more cardio, stuff like that. So I should weigh in totally fine. So I'm going to have some junk food tonight, relax. And I've got work tomorrow, so that'll be that. Hoping for a PB and squat of some kind. Squat's been really good. I've been doing a lot of volume on it. It's contributed a little bit to my back pain, but less so than the deadlifts. Deadlifts have been shocking. I only hit like a 185 top single, and that was like, just with pain. So I'm betting on historically my deadlift being a shower, not a doer, or a grower. I don't know. It'll be a grower, not a shower. I don't know. That analogy's breaking down, but I'm planning on it being there, a lot more being there with the psychological arousal of the day. So hoping for maybe a 202, 205 squat. Realistically, I think a 145 bench press will be quite the fight. And a 217 deadlift would be nice. So we'll see how we go. In terms of what we want to talk about, I think one of the things that I've neglected to talk about on here, because I have so few clients looking to build muscle mass, this might be a nice thing to talk about today. So I do have, I think, 3 clients looking to build muscle mass, so let's talk about that. So, what are the components of building muscle mass? Well, it's very similar to fat loss, right? It's calories in versus calories out, but the contributing factor to muscle gain is gym stimulus. Less so in the fat loss sense, where we're looking just to essentially maintain muscle mass and burn calories to assist fat loss and to allow us to eat more and things like that and to contribute to the fat loss process. Quite a lot of the muscle gaining process is the stimulus that we provide in the gym. So that means figuring out things like what maintenance calories are. First off, if we touch on diet, so we want to figure out what maintenance calories are, which we can do by essentially tracking what we eat, or if you don't like tracking, and that's maybe actually a good topic for a video, I might actually make that note right now. Benefits or discussion on tracking. So like whether you're tracking or not, that's okay. So what you can do is essentially eat the same, same level of food, same quantities for 2 weeks, weigh yourself a couple of times a week, get an average, and then sort of over the 2 weeks you'll get a rough idea for like, this is the amount of volume I need to eat on food, or this is the amount of calories I need to eat roughly to maintain this weight. And then from there you can have a jumping off point to slightly increase calories. So let's focus on diet since we're talking about it anyway. I know I sort of started on training. With a surplus, it usually depends on how lean you are, but like for how comfortable you feel. You should probably just have a moderate surplus. So if your maintenance calories are somebody like me at 2.8, 3,000, maybe 3.1, I might want to have somewhere from like 3 to 3,000 as my caloric intake per day to get sort of like a maybe 100, 200, 300 gram a week weight increase. And then a lot of this has to do with experience in the gym. Like I'm probably intermediate to advanced, so it's going to take quite a lot of stimulus and a small deficit, but a consistent deficit. I'm so used to saying surplus to get results. Somebody in the gym, first 6 months, first year, Probably you just need to have a structured program with progressive overload and eat a few more calories, and you'll just go boop, boop, boop. So the point is a small surplus, 100 to 300 calories a day over maintenance, focusing primarily on sort of the 1.6 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight of protein. And fats can be anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5 grams per kilo of body weight. I'd probably put it at 1, maybe 0.8 to 1 gram per kilo of body weight. And then the rest carbohydrates, looking for sort of probably the 40 to 60% of total calories in carbohydrate. That will facilitate training, facilitate recovery, facilitate positive like leptin, ghrelin. I mean, you're in a calorie surplus anyway, so leptin and ghrelin, these are the hunger hormones. Well, essentially, or some of the hunger hormones will be attenuated by the fact that you're in maintenance surplus. So you really can just be like, make sure you're hitting your protein and whatever you personally feel. You can do like you prefer, whatever you optimize, or whatever you run hot on, whatever you run well on. Have your macro split that way in terms of carbs and fats. I always push carbs because they literally are broken down for energy a lot easier. They facilitate pumps and all those kind of things. So, and then training. So you want to have progressive overload in the gym. That means starting at some kind of set basis, whether that's maybe 10 to 12 sets per body part roughly, 8 to 15 sets per body part per week, depending on the age, sex, weight, work stress, ability to recover, previous injury, all that kind of stuff. So you want to start at where you are, track your progress, and then just as your body develops and you increase your muscle mass, you might want to think about increasing sets. Something like 5 to 15 rep range is probably optimal, but it's important to note that any rep range is hypertrophy stimulative if the RPE, reps in reserve, or rate of perceived exertion, is about 1 to 3 reps left in the tank after each set. So you want to be training hard. You want to be doing sufficient stimulus to essentially increase your muscle size. So if you've sort of been tracking your sets over time during dieting phases, strength phases and stuff like that, you might like to just add 25% to that, whatever, to 15%. Just have an increase. Set your training up in sort of the 12 to 15 week cycle of gaining, the 100 to 300 grams a week. So over a 12 to 15 week cycle, you might gain anywhere from 1 to 2 kilos. And then you can assess your physique based on that and then decide if a mini cut is appropriate, which some people like to buttress between growth phases. So you might do 2 12-week growth phases with a 4-week mini cut in there just to drop off some of the fat. Mini cuts are fast, aggressive fat loss phases that just prioritize losing fat and preserving muscle. So some people just like to, if they're like somebody like me, you look at me, my body fat's quite high. Comparatively, like when you're thinking of bodybuilder status, my body fat is quite high. I'm in the sort of 17 to 22%. So you may want to, at this point, run a mini cut and then continue, or if you feel like you have to look at where you are. So like, I'll use myself as an example. I'm just finishing up a powerlifting prep of sort of probably 3 months now, 4 months. So muscle mass has decreased slightly due to the fact that I've decreased volume so much, and body fat has increased as well because I've been focusing on performance, less focus on limiting caloric intake and having some higher days. So my focus after this powerlifting comp will be to essentially rebuild and restore muscle mass, working on training volume and stuff like that. So it'll be back to the higher sets, still some strength days in there where the power lifts are still sort of trained in the 1 to 8 rep range, but I'll also add a lot more supportive exercises for other muscle groups, back, shoulders, a lot more specific exercises like your hamstring curls, a lot more lateral raises, and all those kind of things that aren't really smashed during your main compound lifts. Probably for 12 to 15 weeks, and then I may run a mini cut before starting preparations for nationals, which will give me probably 5 months of strength training. So it's one of those things where it's like you start to look at where you're at, and you've got to remember as well, we're also heading into some rainy months. So while I might be actually at a body fat percentage where you probably want to run an extended cut or a cut, you have to think about, well, we're about to get into a season where nobody's going to see me without a shirt on or anything, so I might like to just either run a mini cut if I had the time, if I wasn't prepping for powerlifting and stuff as well, and then just like do another sort of slower bulk over the next 12, whatever, 16 weeks. So if you're coming into winter now, you might think maybe now is the time to eat at maintenance, slight surplus, irrespective of your body fat. If you feel uncomfortable in your body, you can absolutely run a cut at any time. Your coach can also work with you on this as well. But I mean, that's it. So all that aside, some things to think about, and how long are we in? We're only at 10 minutes or so. So the two things you want to think about is essentially lifting more weight over time, and that can be in strength rep ranges coupled with higher rep ranges, 20, 30 rep sets, as long as your RP is sort of the 1 to 3 left in the tank on each set. Probably working anywhere from the 8 to 15 sets per body part when you're starting out, and trying to get sort of up to the 18 to 22 to 25 sets per body part. Younger, leaner, smaller lifters are going to be able to lift a lot more volume and recover from it, just due to the fact that they're smaller, younger, better hormonal profiles. It doesn't really matter how lean you are in terms of how much protein you build or muscle you build and stuff like that. It's just really how you feel. If you're feeling quite lean, then you can add a few more calories and train for a little bit harder and longer and build a little bit more muscle. But if you're not, then you don't have to. And then in terms of calories, just a slight surplus, which really operates you having a rough understanding of what your maintenance calorie is, using the scale to sort of just track how your weight's going, using the mirror, using photos, using calipers if you want. They're not really accurate in terms of what the body fat percentage is, but they're good. They're a good measure to be like, I am gaining 17 millimeters on my calipers per weigh-in or per assessment, which may be every 4, 8, 12 weeks. Probably that's too much. Let's make some decisions about what we need to do with diet and stuff like that. So yeah, to recap, the two components are food being in a slight surplus and training volume increasing over time. It might be interesting as a subheading to touch on recomposition, losing body fat and gaining muscle at the same time. I think the consensus on this is roughly that it primarily happens in untrained individuals and the more overweight. There is definitely, like I've heard Schoenfeld and stuff talk about the idea that it can happen to anybody at any time, but I think it's like when you're talking about more advanced lifters who are leaner, putting on muscle mass while cutting, tends to probably be in the much smaller order of magnitude than somebody who is newer to training and more overweight. So like I usually arbitrary, and it is arbitrary, figure of essentially like a 4-to-1 ratio of for every 4 kilos of body fat you would lose, you might gain something like 250. So a 1-to-4 ratio of 250 grams of muscle during a cut. So if you're morbidly obese, if you're obese, and let's say you lose 15 to 20 kilos, you might put on 2 to 5 kilos of muscle mass maybe, but that's a lot. And as I say that number, it probably sounds like a lot, but you know, the person also to take that, to lose that level of body fat probably takes anywhere from 16 to 32 weeks. So in a 32-week cutting phase, it may be possible for a morbidly obese person to put on a little bit of muscle mass. If you're looking at as a non-obese person or as somebody who's looking to optimize muscle gain and losing body fat, I have a tendency to offer a phasic structure. Let's focus on one, let's smash one, and then like have sort of the other one. So let's say we're doing fat loss, we want to focus on fat loss primarily, but doing everything we can to maintain and promote muscle mass, high protein diet, weight training. And then when we are gaining muscle, we want to do everything we can, so a slight surplus, but definitely a surplus. Again, resistance training to a higher degree because you can facilitate higher degrees of recovery. You can use your body weight as a measure to see how much you need to eat. Some people talk about needing to eat several thousand calories to gain weight. Some people talk about, like myself, I literally see a huge gaining in weight in a difference of 2,700 to 3,200. It's 500 calories, so it's quite a large surplus. But I mean, I can go from 97 to 106, 107 without really doing too much. But I also have a tendency to eat quite high processed foods and like drink alcohol, which is, I think, actually fairly representative of how regular people eat. And that's why I feel confident in saying, like, if you're a regular person, like I am actually, like I'm not a fit pro in the sense of walking around year round with abs. I struggle with weight loss and I struggle with obesity and whatever. It's just that I also don't struggle with getting in the gym and really hitting it hard. And that's the only difference. So I lost my point, but yes, you may probably only need a slight surplus and you might want to think about mini cuts and stuff. But essentially, those are the key components to gaining muscle mass. It's not super difficult. It's just finding a training program that you like and eating a little bit more over time. Supplements like creatine, beta-alanine, citrulline malate, protein powder, fish oil, multivitamins are all useful and all beneficial to the extent that they're sort of the tippy top of the pyramid there, and you sort of, maybe timing your protein feedings for sort of the 3 to 5 protein servings a day might optimize protein synthesis. So you may want to have just sort of like the 20 to 40 grams per serve 3 to 5 times a day. Those are optimization techniques, making sure you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. A lot of the things that apply to fat loss in the sense of optimizing recovery, minimizing alcohol, drugs, late nights, those kind of things, will all contribute to building muscle mass, being more recovered, being able to train harder, all those kind of things. I hope this has been helpful. If there's any problems or anything that I haven't addressed fully, please do let me know and I can add an addendum to this. Otherwise, I'll sign off here. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.